we're constantly, going back and forth with payers to get services covered. Just really some payer might think that only a speech therapist should be doing this, not an occupational therapist. And so then working with the insurance to show them, no, we're both trained in this area.
Hmm.
Um, I think
Why does that break down there? What's the root of that breakdown?
that is such a
If you
good
were going to guess.
question. My guess is that probably a lot of times the people who are making these decisions aren't clinicians. They didn't go through school. And so they might just be looking at it from antiquated evidence or something that they were told 10 years ago. I think
I mean,
that
out of date policy or something like
right,
that. Hmm,
right.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
if like it seems simpler in their mind to categorize it.
Well, see, you just pointed at the solution indirectly, though. It's like, how do they get access to the right clinical trained opinions quickly in a way that they can consume it and then be able to turn that into, you know, a better decision, right? Welcome, everyone, to Reimagining Healthcare, a new dialogue with risk and patient safety leaders presented by Medplace. We're excited to bring you conversations with top risk and patient safety thought leaders from organizations around the country. Please subscribe to get the latest news and content. And if you found this episode valuable, by all means, share it with your communities. I'd like to see these dialogues continue. If you're interested in participating as a guest, please email us at speakers@medplace.com. And you can also check out any of our related content like articles, videos, and more at blog.medplace.com/resources. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Heidi Carpenter, the president of, uh, help me out, is it Arizona OTA, ArizOTA? How do we want to pronounce that?
You've got it. It's the Arizona Occupational Therapy Association, ArizOTA.
ArizOTA. I love it. Okay.
So thank you so much for having me. The one thing I do want to say about technology, though, is this ability to help with predictive like decision making when there are these huge data sets that could be valuable, but we basically spend all this time on documentation that goes to our payers, but oftentimes a black hole. That
Yeah.
valuable insight is often lost. So this kind of feeds into the drumbeat conversation of I want us to work smarter, not harder as a profession and use what like leverage what we're already using to inform us to be the best clinicians we can because we don't want to be overtaken by AI, right? Like I read an article about a gym teacher who fed into Chat GPT, how do I set up an accessible basketball game? And Chat GPT gave him an entire list of recommendations. Now they were generalized. It might not have worked for his specific population of students, group of students, but still that gets a little bit scary. And so,
Right?
yeah.
Or I hear, you hear scary, I hear opportunity. Look, gosh, boy, we could have a lot worse PE teachers be a lot better with some augmentation of what they know, like being able to give them sort of instant access to experience, right? It's kind of like Google. For this last generation, they took for granted that Google was a thing, right? For me, I had to go to the library and the old Dewey Decimal System, and you try to find a book, and then you got to pore through it to find the one thing, the fact that you were looking for. Right now, kids are just Googling it, and they take for granted what it took to get there. Well, I think the next generation is going to have the same access to AI, and it's going to be like not just can I can you give me instant access to information, but can you give me the right answer, synthesized and
Right.
packaged? And then so then what? So what does that mean my value is if that thing's doing that for me? And I think there's all kinds of interesting answers to that question, right? So like one point of value is like, how do you prompt the AI to get you the answer that you want? How do you do more faster, right? How do I account for mistakes or have AI be able to watch for mistakes so that I can help a larger population of people with fewer mistakes, right? And have the sort of built-in kind of advisor with me. So I just find it fascinating. I see nothing but, I've got rose-colored glasses. Skynet may take over and kill us all, but for right now, it sure seems pretty interesting to me, right?
This is what has been keeping me up at night. And I think you speaking to what is our value now, our value can be offerings that we haven't necessarily even thought about yet. Because if
Yeah.
it takes a shorter time to synthesize information, how many more people can we be serving? And what of a bigger impact can we be making? And then how can we
Yeah.
leverage these technologies to teach our students when they're still in the education stages of learning how to be an occupational therapist or an occupational therapy assistant?
Yeah. I mean, think about all the times when someone should be going to an occupational therapist and aren't because of cost, time, expense, and like just the volume of places that we could meet humans in the treatment and just enhancement of the quality of life. That at some point AI can probably help serve some of that up, right? We'll have smart homes that might be just monitoring our heartbeats and other things, and to be able to create a larger population for occupational therapists to work with earlier, right? Get better outcomes faster, things like that. Sounds delightful to me, but we'll see where it goes. I'm sure
It
we'll get bit along the way, right?
Right. It does sound delightful. And then creating, financial models that support that. I think that these are the pieces that, we learn how to be really good providers in school, but then the business side of it, the technology side of it, um, isn't always included. And so then as I'm out in practice, I'm learning I really have to find the people who know the business side and figure out how to make all of it work so that we can progress
Yeah.
forward.
I'm curious, this doesn't have to be technology related, but what are occupational therapists really like struggling with the most? Like, what are the, main things that you hear from the community of like where they're struggling or where they need the most help or advice or whatever those things might be.
So it's a couple of different things. We're constantly, going back and forth with payers to get services covered. Just really some payer might think that only a speech therapist should be doing this, not an occupational therapist. And so then working with the insurance to show them, no, we're both trained in this area.
Hmm.
Um, I think
Why does that break down there? What's the root of that breakdown?
that is such a
If you were
good
going to guess.
And my guess is that probably a lot of times, the people who are making these decisions aren't clinicians. They didn't go through school. And so they might just be looking at it from antiquated evidence or something that they were told 10 years ago. I think
I mean,
that
out of date policy or something like
right,
that. Hmm,
right.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
if like it seems simpler in their mind to categorize it.
Well, see, you just pointed at the solution indirectly, though. It's like, how do they get access to the right clinical trained opinions quickly in a way that they can consume it and then be able to turn that into, you know, a better decision, right? And I've seen the inside of these operations. They don't have access. They're sitting in a cubicle with a stack of files this high on their desk, and their job is to like get that file cut and those files cut in half, and do all of these things and with not enough time, and those are problems that get solved with things like AI and technology and stuff. Being able to break down that barrier so that they can press a button and talk to somebody who actually has a clinical background and be able to give them a better assessment, right? And do that quickly. So it's interesting if that's where the breakdown is. I think there's opportunity, right?
I think there is. And then another area of opportunity is, some people work in facilities where the productivity requirement is 100%. And as a human, how can you work with someone for 100% of your day when you're there? And that doesn't include documentation.
Wow.
So,
Oh, right. Yeah. I just saw a post the other day. It's something about what you're expected to do as a clinician, right? You're expected to be like billable 7 hours a day, but you have 7 hours of paperwork to do as well on top of that. So
Right. Yeah. And, if you're helping somebody transfer from their wheelchair to the toilet, you're not doing point of service documentation in that moment. Like, that would not be
let's
realistic.
hope not.
Let's
Oh my
hope not.
gosh. Oh my
So,
gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
great though. Yeah. So we're expecting 100%. It's not realistic. So of course things are going to break, right, in the process and in that system.
And unfortunately, it's the people who are breaking. People are getting burnt
Yeah.
out. Burnout is the highest I think it's ever been. And
Is
it
it?
doesn't necessarily show signs of stopping or slowing down. I think in one sense, it's helping people really recognize what's important to them and where they want to spend their time. Um, but at the same time, it would be nice if, these places where we're really needed had a more realistic view of what was capable in a, 8 or 10 hour day for a human. Um, Robots don't need to take breaks, but I don't know if the AI is quite there for all the nuances required for taking somebody through a OT session.
My gosh. Well, maybe AI can just sit there and like take notes and do all the documentation for us, if nothing else, right?
It's very possible, and I love this idea of uh, assisted clinical decision making, where and I know that some physicians are using this, but basically this really large bank of all this best practice data is pushed to a clinician where, say, you have somebody come in, they have Parkinson's disease, they are this far along in their diagnosis. Sure, I may have a bank of knowledge from my training of what to do, but I don't have time to read the 30 latest best articles on it. So what if
Yeah.
that is pushed to me and then I could make a decision with that information and, my client in front of me.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Heidi, what anything with the mission as far as the folks listening? Is there anything that you want to ask, offer? How do people get a hold of you? Like, how what do you need from the world, and what would you like to say here? Looking for memberships, just awareness. What's interesting for you?
Yes, if you are listening and you are interested in being a member, I think we even have like non OT practitioner memberships. I'm so bad I don't know that off the top of my head, but certainly if you are an occupational therapy professional listening, become a member of ArizOTA. But um, I think there is so much room for collaboration and just really working on this preventative side of anybody could really see an OT. My husband kind of teases me all the time that we don't kind of wear our value on our sleeve. We attempt to kind of hide it when, even if everything is going right for you, there is probably something that um an occupational therapy professional could point out or just help you to see about your life or what you're doing. So um I just hope that as healthcare continues to progress, we do
Mm.
find models to work together as much as possible. And I'm a huge fan of like the triple aim and now the quadruple aim and the right provider, right client, right time, So there's also a new directory. I want to give a shout out to OT Potential. OT Potential has created an occupational therapy directory for providers. So if you
Oh
Google that,
wow.
find it. Yeah, and it's kind of the first of its kind. So it's worldwide and it highlights, people who are doing great work. And occupational therapy is not direct access in all 50 states yet. It is in Arizona, which is nice. However, insurance usually requires that we have a physician overseeing the plan of care. But if we're doing something more non-traditional then or cash-based, then it's direct access, which is nice. So I really hope to see the presence of occupational therapy continue to grow.
Amazing. I love it. Well, Heidi, thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for joining me today. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to give a
Oh,
statement
there's
on? Are we good?
but I think we could talk all
I
day.
could keep you here all day.
Seriously.
Well, this was great. I appreciate the flyover and kind of helping me and us understand a little bit more about what your world looks like, and hearing some of the challenges that others in other specialties and other areas of healthcare and medicine are all dealing with in one way or the other. So it's nice to know that we're not alone. That we're all thinking about what is the version 2.0 of our industries look like, right? And a few of us, about 1 to 2% of us, are actually actively visualizing that future and making things happen. So if anyone else is interested in helping you realize the future of occupational therapy, how would they get a hold of you? Do they find you on LinkedIn or?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Heidi Carpenter. I think it's Heidi Anna Carpenter. ANA is my middle name. At
And we'll put that link in the show notes also. So if you don't have to furiously write, those of you listening to this, but great. So your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I have a link tree, which I think is the coolest thing because you can just update it as you need
Oh
to.
yeah.
But yes, if you'll find them in the show notes, but at Heidiana OT is my handle for Twitter and Instagram. And my email is heidi@embodiot.com.
Fantastic. Well, Heidi, it was a pleasure having you. Thanks for spending some time with me. For everyone else, thank you for listening to Reimagining Healthcare, a new dialogue with risk and patient safety leaders. Subscribe and share if you found it valuable. And if you'd like to participate as a guest, again, just email us at speakers@medplace.com and make sure that you follow Heidi, connect with her on LinkedIn. Again, we'll put all of your info in the show notes. Heidi, thanks again. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much, Jared.